Hey everybody, welcome to Fit Tip Tuesday. I have an exciting sleeve fitting technique I want to share with you, and I can't even take credit for it because this is something that one of my sewing friends was working on. And initially, she contacted me to help her fit her sleeve, and we were looking at the shape of her arm. She had a forward shoulder or forward ball of her shoulder, and she had the shape of her arm. Um, her elbow had a slight bend, even if she was holding her arm straight. So we tried a few things to adjust the sleeve cap, and that really didn't help very much. So what she discovered in going forward was she needed to pin the underarm seam almost on a diagonal to get the sleeve to hang right. So basically what she did was she added more room towards the back on the lower half of the sleeve. So if you look here, I'm going to show you the sleeve and how nicely it's hanging. Okay, so you can see right here, look how nice that looks. I forgot to ask her for a before picture, but she had those classic drag lines, coming down, her sleeve on a diagonal. So what she ended up doing was she ended up creating a sleeve that had the cap cut out, but then the rest of the sleeve was more like a rectangle, so she could drape the sleeve onto her arm and pin it until it hung straight. So now let's look at her final shape of her sleeve. And here it is. You can see from approximately the elbow down, it is bent towards the back. So what I want to do is just sort of give you a quick tutorial on how you can try this yourself. If you've tried adjusting your armhole, the width of your top, meaning your armhole is on your shoulder properly, or you've tried, moving the cap around, and none of that is working, maybe give this a try. So you can see in front of me here, I have a raglan sleeve, and I honestly don't think it matters whether it's a raglan sleeve or a traditional sleeve, because the top part of the cap and the very beginning of the underarm seam is going to be sewn together as is. It's when you get a little bit farther down that things may shift. So I created a arm for my ditto form here. You can see it's not the most beautiful anatomically correct arm. I just wanted to make something that I could drape on to show you the technique. So what I'm going to do first is I am going to fold the sleeve in half, and I'm going to pin it together on the actual seam. And I'm using my short steel head pins, which are a little bit firmer than my glass head dress pins. And I'm just going to pin this together for the first few inches. And you can see I'm pinning it together so, as if I were sewing it. So I'm pinning about 3/8 of an inch away from the actual seam. And I'm going to go down about, maybe 5 inches. Okay, so I've got that pinned. Okay, and that's pretty close on the opposite side. So now let's put this on the dress form. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide it on. And I think at this point you could have the sleeve in the armhole if you'd like to, or to get it to hang. If you're doing this on yourself, you can actually sew the cap in and just sew that little bit of the underarm seam, so you can get it on your body. But basically now I'm just going to fit this on as if it were attached to the rest of a raglan sleeve, and I'm going to pin it up at the neckline to get it in the proper position. Okay, so if you were working with a standard sleeve, like I said, sew it into the front and back and put it on You may have to have somebody help you. But basically, you can see what we have now here. We have a sleeve that we can pin the underarm, we can pin that underarm seam. So as it's coming down, see how it's fitting through the upper arm, and if it's not wrinkled or there's no drag lines with the rest of the underarm seam loose, then you know that this part is correct. Then what you can do is you can just start shifting the fabric and pinning it together until you get it to hang properly. And again, I can't really reproduce the wrinkles that were on Audrey's sleeve because this is a fake arm and it's not a very good one at that. But I just wanted to explain, if you pin, so let's say we're pinning, and in order to get it to hang straight, we have to rotate the fabric towards the back or towards the front, and depending on your fitting issue, it could probably go either way. But basically here, I am just going to keep pinning until I have a nicely draped sleeve. So as I get to the elbow, I can see what's happening here. I made a bend in the elbow just to sort of have that to work with, but I can see I'm having to shift fabric around this way. Okay, so I'm going to continue to pin the sleeve. And again, I'm going to keep, fitting it on until I get to the bottom. Now the other issue with the sleeve I'm working with is the sleeve itself is probably a little bit too small for this fake arm that I made here. This is pretty chunky down here, but like I said, I just wanted to show you what it could look like. All right, so then once I have that pinned on and I don't have any funky ripples, I'm going to take it off. And let's take a look and see what it's doing. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mark where my pins are in my front and in my back. So you can see in the back, I'll use a different color, I'll use red. I had to pull this out a little bit here. Okay, so that's where my pins went in the back. Okay, so then in the front, I'm just going to mark where the pins fell out on the front of my sleeve here. And again, I think my puffy, little muzzle and arm I made is a little bit too big for this pattern. But what I want to show you here is when I take this out, I want to show you what happened. Oops. Okay, let's lay this flat so I can show you. Okay, so what happened here is we had more of a change in the back than we did in the front. And I think that would vary depending on what your fitting issue is. But if I were to true this up now, okay, let's draw a final shape here. Just going to make a gentle curve here, and then it's going to shift out this way a little bit. Okay, and then over here, it's kind of shifting in a little bit. And this example isn't as drastic as Audrey's was, but you can see what happened is the shape of my arm is tipping in towards the back. So if I were to cut this out, when we pin it together, you'll see that the seam is going to curve towards the back a little bit. It's going to be a little bit on the diagonal. Use my good pins now. So let me just pin this. So I'm just going to pin it as if I were sewing it here. And then if I lay it so the seam is laying, you know, down the center, you can see what's happening is it's curving okay, you can see it's curving towards the back a little bit. Okay, so it's on a slight angle. So the cool thing is, if you look at Audrey's sleeve, and here it is laying flat, and you can see her diagonal seam is a little bit more obvious. But remember, that underarm seam is underneath your arm, and then it's curving towards the back. So it's really not that noticeable that the seam is shaped. But look how beautifully her sleeve hangs nicely. So I just wanted to give you like a quick tutorial on how, if you've tried everything else to get the sleeve to hang right from your actual shoulder, then you could try this method. Now another tip is, if you start with a short sleeve and see if that's hanging properly, and it really only starts to bunch up and cause diagonal wrinkles when it's a full length sleeve, and you know, especially if you've got shape or if your elbow is bent slightly, then this may actually work for you. So, you know, give this a try. You may need a friend to help you, you know, drape it onto yourself. It's pretty hard to do this yourself unless you gradually make more and more of a diagonal and keep trying it on. So if you have a sewing friend who could help you drape the sleeve on your arm, you know, sort of rotating the fabric once you get, you know, just below the armhole, you know, just give yourself a couple inches under your arm of a straight underarm seam, and then start shifting the fabric either towards the back or towards the front to see if you can get rid of those ripples and, you know, diagonal drag lines, and then, you know, pin it in shape and see what you end up with. So I'm very excited about this, and I'm really looking forward to hearing if anybody else has success fixing their sleeve. I worked with the raglan sleeve in this tutorial because I do have a student who was in my raglan sleeve class for Fabric Mart Fabric last weekend who ended up with drag lines on her sleeve. And she has a similar shape shoulder and arm, so I'm really hoping this will help reduce those drag lines. So if anybody has any questions or comments, please post them below and I will help you. If you have any, you know, any trouble with this and you need some more tips, you know, send me pictures of what you're doing and I will help you work on this, because sleeves really can make or break the look of your top. So I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial, and I will see you on Friday for the progress on my new jeans pattern. I think I have it fitted pretty well now. I'm super excited, and I'm going to show you where we are with that on Friday. So have a lovely rest of your week, and thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.